Part 1. The Illusion of Kindness. She stood still in the dim light of dawn, her eyes reflecting a sorrow too deep for words. You might think she's kind, and she is, but not in the way you imagine. In her world, kindness is not a virtue, it's a weapon. It is not handed out freely, but drawn like a blade when it matters most. Because she learned the truth early on. When kindness becomes habit, it becomes a leash. And the one who wears it is not loved, only used. Kindness. It sounds like the highest moral calling. From childhood, we're told to be nice, share our toys, say sorry, even when we're not, forgive everyone, no matter what they've done. And as we grow older, that conditioning mutates into something even more dangerous. The belief that by being kind to all, we can avoid conflict, gain respect, and build harmony. But what no one tells you is this. In a world driven by power, kindness without strategy is suicide. The most dangerous people in history were not cruel monsters. They were kind fools. People who gave endlessly, hoping that goodwill would create loyalty. But as Machiavelli once hinted, it's not love that keeps the knife out of your back. It's fear. Unchecked kindness also creates imbalance. People don't analyze why you're kind, they simply expect it. And what begins as generosity transforms into obligation. Your approval, once cherished, becomes routine. Your help, once appreciated, becomes demanded. This is where the fantasy ends and strategy begins. Power doesn't belong to the most generous. It belongs to those who give deliberately. The kind ruler who shows mercy to all is not remembered as noble. He is remembered as weak. His enemies admire his softness, not with gratitude, but with opportunism. They wait until his kindness becomes predictable. Then they strike. So let's reframe the story. Instead of aiming to be universally loved, aim to be selectively generous. Let kindness be a signal of discernment, not desperation. Part 2. Kindness as a liability. There's a hidden danger in being endlessly kind, a truth most people never see coming. Kindness, when offered without judgment or strategy, doesn't build bridges. It erodes authority. It exposes you. It invites manipulation. The modern world praises kindness as if it were the highest standard of morality. Be kind to your friends. Be kind to your enemies. Be kind to those who lie, steal, and betray. But Machiavelli would laugh at such naivete. He understood what many leaders forget. The uncontrolled urge to be seen as good is the most exploitable weakness in power. When kindness becomes compulsive, it's no longer a virtue. It becomes a liability. It shows that you're not guided by principle, you're guided by emotion. And in the realm of power, emotion is a leash others will gladly hold for you. Kindness without limits signals weakness. It tells others you have no standards, that your affection can be bought with bare minimum effort, and once people know this, they stop trying. The friend stops showing up, the lover stops saying thank you, the colleague stops pulling their weight. Because if you reward everyone the same, the reward becomes meaningless. Even worse, it builds a trap you can't escape. At first, people admire you, she's so kind, so patient, but soon they expect it. Kindness becomes your brand, and deviating from it makes you seem cruel. The moment you say no, you're punished. They don't remember the 100 times you said yes. They only remember the one time you set a boundary. But the one who understands the psychology of kindness, they never give without a reason. Their generosity is not reflex, it's a calculated move. A reward for loyalty, a weapon against rebellion, a strategic delay of punishment. They do not feel guilty when they say no, because they never promised yes to everyone. This kind of power doesn't wear a smile. It wears a mirror, reflecting exactly what the other person offers. Loyalty begets kindness. Effort begets reward. Disrespect, silence. The moment kindness becomes predictable, it loses its force. Predictable people are easy to manipulate, but when your kindness is rare, earned, it becomes something others chase. They think twice before crossing you, not out of fear of your cruelty, but fear of losing access to your approval. That is control. That is control. Part 3. The selective power of kindness. True power doesn't come from being universally liked. It comes from being selectively generous. When kindness is handed out to everyone, it loses its meaning. But when it is given to the few who prove themselves, to those who offer loyalty, show discipline, or deliver results, it becomes a prize, a sign of recognition, a signal that you are worth something. And that's where influence begins to take root. A wise leader never rewards without reason. They don't give to appear good, they give to strengthen structure. Every act of kindness is a move on the board, strategic, intentional, and never wasted. People admire what they have to earn. When kindness becomes a reward, not a default, it transforms into something rare, like gold. And like gold, people begin to chase it, not because they need affection, but because they want to be seen. They want to matter to the one who does not give freely. This creates hierarchy, and hierarchy creates order. When you reward selectively, you teach people how to behave. You give them a path to rise, and in return, they offer their loyalty not because you are soft, but because your approval is valuable. A kind ruler without standards invites decay, but a calculating one builds a system where kindness becomes a tool of elevation. People don't grow under constant ease. They grow under challenge, under clarity, under earned recognition. In every domain, politics, business, relationships, the principle remains the same. Affection offered to all is respected by none. People don't admire generosity without standards. They admire the weight of judgment, the presence of boundaries, the feeling that what they receive matters because not everyone can get it. This is the genius of selective kindness. It creates mystery. People begin to wonder, what must I do to be chosen? They work harder, they watch what they say, they sharpen their loyalty, and even when they don't admit it, they care. Your warmth, when reserved, becomes a throne. Your silence, a test. Your attention, a reward. You no longer operate in noise. You become the signal others chase. So be generous, but only when it serves a purpose. Offer forgiveness, but only to those who have earned it. Show mercy, but never without memory. Because in this world, it is not kindness that rules. It is the ability to control when and where kindness is shown. And that ability is what turns generosity into power. Part 4. When kindness becomes a weapon. Kindness is not always about goodness. In the hands of the strategic, it becomes a weapon, subtle, sharp, and devastating. This is the kind of kindness most people never see coming. It wears the mask of empathy, but behind it lies precision. It is not offered out of love, but out of need. Not from softness, but from calculation. And that's what makes it so powerful. It disarms, distracts, and controls. A clever leader uses kindness, not as a blanket, but as a scalpel. They don't throw it around, they aim it. They offer it when it creates a bond, softens resistance, or plants guilt in the heart of a potential threat. They forgive to remind others of what they owe. They help not to heal, but to own. Mercy can crush a rebellion. Compassion can delay a betrayal, not because they inspire love, but because they confuse the enemy. When someone expects punishment and receives grace, they hesitate, they second-guess. And in that hesitation, you gain time, space, advantage. To forgive selectively is not weakness, it is influence. It plants a debt in the heart of the forgiven, a silent contract that binds them to you. Whether through shame, gratitude, or strategic obligation, they now carry your mercy like a chain. And chains, when invisible, are the strongest kind. But there is a darker layer still. Kindness can also be used to isolate, to turn allies against one another, to manipulate perception. A leader who shows favor to one and withholds it from others sends a message: I see value, but not in you. This breeds competition. It creates a hierarchy of access. People begin to shift, scramble, adjust themselves to win what you never promised. Your kindness becomes the prize, and in chasing it, they shape themselves to your rules. This is how empires are kept in line. not through constant cruelty, but through controlled warmth. And what about love? Affection? Trust? These things are powerful too, but only when they are kept in check. The moment you become addicted to being liked, you begin to lose yourself. But when you treat affection like any other resource, to be used, rationed, deployed, it becomes part of your arsenal. A kind word can open doors. A gentle look can end a fight. A well-timed act of generosity can shatter the defenses of even the most cynical heart. But only if it's rare. Only if it's real enough to cut. So remember this. Kindness is not about peace. It's about leverage. And those who understand that don't smile because they're soft. They smile because they know exactly what that smile will cost the other person tomorrow. Part 5. Predictable kindness is powerless kindness. When it becomes predictable, stops being kindness. It becomes noise. People don't value what they expect. They don't chase what they can always have. When your warmth is given freely to everyone, it loses all meaning. It becomes background, like air. Necessary, maybe, but invisible, and most dangerously, forgettable. A ruler who gives affection without judgment is not seen as generous. He is seen as weak. And weakness does not inspire loyalty. It invites ambition. Predictable kindness is like a door that's always open. People stop knocking. They just walk in. They take. They leave. And they never look back. And then, when you finally try to close the door, to say no, you are punished. They call you selfish, distant, changed. They never mention the 100 times you said yes, the late nights, the sacrifices, the patience. Those are forgotten the moment you choose yourself, because predictable kindness is not remembered. Only its absence is noticed and resented. This is the curse of being endlessly available. People don't remember what they didn't earn. They only remember when it's gone. But the one who gives sparingly, who offers affection like a treasure, is remembered. Because when you finally offer warmth, it matters. When you give time, it has weight. When you approve, it feels earned. And that creates power. People don't chase what is easy. They chase what feels scarce. This is true in economics, in love, in leadership. Scarcity creates value. And kindness, when rare and deliberate, becomes more than a gesture. It becomes a symbol. People compete for it. They respect it. They adapt themselves to it. Because in a world where most people crave attention, the one who withholds becomes the standard. So don't aim to be kind all the time. Aim to be kind with precision, because when kindness is expected, it has no impact. But when it's withheld and then offered with meaning, it transforms everything. It's no longer an act, it's a statement. And that, more than any display of emotion, is what people remember. Part 6. Boundaries create loyalty. Loyalty isn't born from generosity, it's born from limits. People don't follow those who give without question. They follow those who lead with discipline. When boundaries are clear, loyalty becomes meaningful. When standards are enforced, respect takes root. It's not about how much you give. It's about what it takes to receive it. If kindness is always available, people will treat it like it costs nothing. But if kindness must be earned, if it's tied to behavior, to merit, to effort, then it becomes sacred. Boundaries are not cruelty. They are clarity. They tell people where you stand and where they should not. In relationships, boundaries prevent decay. They stop people from taking too much. They teach others to value your presence. And when someone finally earns a place within your limits, they feel it. They know it matters. And that's when loyalty begins. Because loyalty is not a reaction to kindness, it is a response to structure. A person who must rise to meet your standards will not take you for granted. They will remember what it took to stay close, and that memory is stronger than affection. Boundaries also protect your authority. When people know there's a cost to misbehavior, they act with care. They measure their words. They respect your silence. They step lightly, not out of fear of punishment, but out of fear of being excluded. This fear is not about violence. It's about loss, the loss of access, the loss of privilege. And that kind of fear creates stability. Because the truth is simple. People don't respect what's easy. They respect what's rare, what's guarded, what must be earned. A leader who enforces boundaries commands attention without raising their voice. Their approval becomes a destination, not a default. Their presence becomes something people prepare for, not pass through. This kind of loyalty doesn't crumble under pressure. It endures because it wasn't built on gifts or smiles. It was built on earned access, measured steps, and mutual understanding. So stop trying to be universally liked. Start drawing lines, because boundaries don't push people away. They show people how to stay. Part 7. Fear builds structure. Affection breeds entitlement. Affection is unstable. People love you when you please them. When you say yes, when you give what they want. But the moment you disappoint them, the affection fades. And often, it turns to contempt. Affection is rooted in feeling, and feelings shift with mood, with timing, with convenience. A single delay, one firm no, a necessary punishment, and the same people who once praised you now question everything about you, not because you changed, but because their affection was never about you. It was about what you gave them. But fear is structural. It doesn't care about mood. It doesn't fluctuate with disappointment. Fear is built into memory. It shapes behavior through consequence. It asks one question: what will this cost me? And that question is powerful. It slows betrayal. It holds back envy. It makes people think before they act. Those who are feared are not always harsh. They are consistent, predictable in consequence, unpredictable in tolerance. And that uncertainty keeps people in line. Not out of love, out of respect for the line they know not to cross. Love can be manipulated. Affection can be faked. But fear, when earned, anchors loyalty deeper than words. A man who is feared never begs for allegiance. He does not bribe, does not please. He governs by presence, and people shape themselves to that presence. When others think, what will happen if I cross them? They don't. And in that space, discipline forms, not from threats, but from understanding. The kind leader hopes people will do right because they care. The feared leader ensures they do right because they understand the cost of doing wrong. And in a world ruled by ambition, ego, envy, understanding cost is what prevents collapse. Because fear, when earned and applied with clarity, is not cruelty. It is protection. It is order. It is insurance against the very thing that destroys leaders most, betrayal from within. Part 8. Mercy has a price, and it must be paid. Mercy feels noble. It feels warm, dignified, a higher form of strength. But in the world of power, mercy is never free. It's never given without consequence. And if it is, it becomes weakness. True mercy, effective mercy, must cost the recipient something. It must create a shift in power. Otherwise, it's just surrender dressed up as virtue. When you forgive, you are not releasing someone. You are binding them. You are saying, you owe me now. And that debt must linger. It must shape how they move around you. If it doesn't, then you've handed power to someone who already disrespected you. When mercy is real, it rewires a relationship. The forgiven must now carry the weight of being spared. And you must carry the responsibility of using that weight wisely. If you let them go and let them forget, you've taught them nothing. Worse, you've shown them you don't mean what you say. And next time, they'll test you again. But if they feel the cost, in loyalty, in action, in changed behavior, then mercy becomes a tool of alignment. It brings them under control, not into comfort. This is why smart leaders use mercy like a sword, not a blanket. They pardon one person, not to look good, but to control many. When an audience sees you spare someone, they watch closely. They wonder, why him? What did it cost? And in that wondering, You reshape the room. You create fear and gratitude at once. You deepen your myth. Your mercy becomes part of your legend, because mercy, when rare and unforgettable, becomes leverage. But never forget this: mercy cannot be casual. If it's casual, it invites chaos. It tells people there are no real consequences, and where consequences disappear, order dies. So when you forgive, make it known, not loudly, but unmistakably, and let the forgiven carry it like a mark. A reminder that what they received wasn't kindness, it was restraint. And restraint, in the hands of the powerful, is always conditional. Part 9. Justice is not the absence of pain, it is the presence of order. Justice is often misunderstood. People imagine it as soft, gentle, a process that makes everyone feel heard, accepted, and forgiven. But that is not justice. That is therapy disguised as leadership. Real justice is not the absence of pain, it is the presence of order. It is the act of drawing a line and enforcing it. Not when it's easy, not when it's popular, but when it's necessary. And that necessity almost always involves discomfort. Justice is not about avoiding conflict. It is about correcting imbalance with precision. Leaders who avoid pain end up avoiding justice. They allow disrespect to fester. They tolerate incompetence. They delay necessary consequences because they fear being seen as cruel. But that delay is what creates chaos. Because when wrongdoing is not corrected, it spreads. And when boundaries are not enforced, people begin to test everything. The price of delayed punishment is not peace, it's collapse. Justice must be swift. Not because cruelty is efficient, but because order is. When people see a clear consequence for betrayal, laziness, or deceit, they understand the rules are real. They adjust. They correct themselves. They fall in line, not because they were punished, but because they saw someone else was. A single example of decisive correction does what years of passive tolerance cannot. It teaches. So when you act, don't apologize. When you correct, don't hesitate. You are not being cruel. You are preserving structure. You are protecting the ones who obey, the ones who hold the line, and the ones who suffer when justice is delayed for the comfort of the disloyal. Because no empire, no family, no business, no order survives when correction becomes optional. Real justice is not about how people feel. It's about what people remember. And pain, when delivered with purpose, makes memory permanent. Part 10. Harshness preserves the system. No structure lasts without correction. People believe systems fail from outside forces, rebellion, economic collapse, bad luck. But more often, systems rot from within. Not from enemies, but from tolerance. From leaders who know what's wrong and do nothing. Harshness is not about anger, it's about maintenance. It's the cost of keeping things intact. And when administered with reason, it protects more than it punishes. To the sentimental, a harsh act feels brutal, but to the wise, it feels necessary. Consider this: when one traitor is punished in view of many, the lesson is not about that one person. It's about everyone watching. It says, this path ends here. It sets a limit. And more importantly, it reminds the loyal why their loyalty matters. Harshness is not personal. It's political. It says to the silent majority, you are safe because the system holds. And it says to the ambitious few, play games and you will lose. This kind of clarity creates security. Not fear of pain, but fear of chaos. And chaos is always closer than people think. Harshness draws the line early, before the infection spreads, before loyalty decays, before the slow erosion of standards turns into collapse. Every system has thresholds. When they are crossed, action must follow, without delay, without apology. Because if people begin to believe that lines are decorative, that rules are suggestions, that kindness is unconditional, then everything becomes negotiable. And when everything is negotiable, nothing stands. So don't fear harshness. Fear what happens in its absence. Because softness, when misplaced, empowers the worst. It tells the disloyal they have time. It tells the lazy they're safe. and it tells the strong that standards are negotiable. But when harshness is real, when it is known, expected, and delivered, it keeps everything in place. It holds the walls. It defends the loyal, and it shows that your kindness has meaning, because your boundaries are real. Part 11. Loyalty forged in fire, not favors. Real loyalty does not come from gifts. It comes from struggle. People do not commit to what is easy. They commit to what tests them, what challenges them, what makes them become more. When loyalty is bought with comfort, it fades the moment the comfort stops. But when it's earned through difficulty, it endures. You don't create loyal people by pleasing them. You create them by sharpening them. This is why leaders who give too much end up surrounded by dependents, not disciples. Dependents stay as long as the rewards flow. The moment the river runs dry, they leave, complain, betray, because they were never loyal to you, only to your generosity. By contrast, the one who had to climb, who had to prove, who had to withstand your silence, your standards, your structure, they remain. Not because you made them feel good, but because you made them better. Loyalty forged in fire is unshakable, because it was built on truth, not convenience, on difficulty, not delight. And people remember what cost them something. They remember where they were shaped, and they do not abandon what forged their strength. They do not worship the leader who gave them everything. They follow the one who demanded more of them and made them rise. So if you want true loyalty, stop trying to buy it. Build it. Test people. Watch who stays. Challenge them. Deny them. Delay your approval. See who adapts, who rises, who doesn't quit when you go silent. Because the ones who pass through fire stand beside you. Those are the ones who will never break when the storm comes. Part 12. The man who is feared is rarely betrayed. People betray those they think they can get away with betraying. They test softness. They exploit kindness. But fear, real fear, creates hesitation. And hesitation is often enough to prevent treachery. The man who is feared doesn't need to scream. He doesn't need to threaten. His boundaries are already understood. His silence is loud. His disapproval is a sentence. He is rarely betrayed, not because people love him, but because they calculate the cost. Fear, when rational, creates structure. It teaches people where the edges are. It makes them pause, makes them consider outcomes. And that pause is what protects you. Because betrayal, like all impulsive acts, needs speed, but fear slows it down. Those who are feared are not always harsh. They are consistent, predictable in consequence, unpredictable in tolerance. And that uncertainty keeps people in line, not out of love, out of respect for the line they know not to cross. Love can be manipulated, affection can be faked, but fear, when earned, anchors loyalty deeper than words. A man who is feared never begs for allegiance. He does not bribe, does not please. He governs by presence, and people shape themselves to that presence. When others think, what will happen if I cross them? They don't. And in that space, discipline forms, not from threats, but from understanding. The kind leader hopes people will do right because they care. The feared leader ensures they do right because they understand the cost of doing wrong. And in a world ruled by ambition, ego, envy, understanding cost is what prevents collapse. Because fear, when earned and applied with clarity, is not cruelty. It is protection. It is order. It is insurance against the very thing that destroys leaders most, betrayal from within. Part 13. Restraint is not weakness. It is control. The world often mistakes noise for strength. People believe that the loudest voice in the room holds the most power, that the one who punishes quickly, reacts violently, or dominates with emotion is in control. But real power doesn't shout. It watches, it waits, and when it moves without waste. Restraint is not weakness. It is the highest form of discipline. It is proof that you are not ruled by impulse, but by clarity. Power is not in reacting. Power is in choosing not to, until the moment serves you. A leader who reacts to everything is not strong. They are predictable. And predictability can be managed, manipulated, and eventually undone. But a leader who withholds, who observes, who lets others reveal themselves before responding, that leader becomes a mystery. And mystery creates leverage. Restraint gives you time to gather information, to understand who's loyal, to identify who is pretending, to see which pressures will expose weakness, not yours, but theirs. It makes people uneasy. They don't know where they stand. They fill the silence with their own fears. And in doing so, they reveal more than they realize. Your stillness becomes a mirror, and that mirror shows them themselves. So the next time you are tempted to respond, to defend, to explain, wait. Because those who wait command more than the room. They command the tempo of the entire game. Restraint is not about doing nothing. It's about doing nothing until it matters most. And when it does, when you act with precision, not panic, that's when people see the difference between a leader who reacts and a leader who rules. Part 14. Generosity without boundaries leads to decay. Generosity feels good. It makes you liked. It creates warmth. It feeds your image and your ego. But when generosity has no edge, no limits, no structure, it begins to rot. Not just the people around you, but you. The endless giver becomes hollow. The one who says yes too often begins to disappear. Their value dissolves. Their voice becomes noise, and their strength becomes a memory. Generosity, when endless, breeds expectation. And expectation, when never checked, becomes entitlement. The more you give, the more they assume it's owed. And the moment you pull back, not to punish, but to breathe, they react with anger. Not gratitude for what you gave, but outrage that you stopped. They forget the favors. They ignore the sacrifices. They only remember the disruption of their comfort. Worse still, generosity without boundaries weakens the receiver. They stop trying. They expect ease. They lose the edge that growth demands, and they begin to collapse into dependency. What was once a gift becomes poison. They no longer rise. They sink, and they drag you with them. So draw the line. Don't give because it feels noble. Give because it builds something. Not comfort, but clarity. Not dependency, but strength. And when the line is crossed, stop. Because unchecked generosity doesn't inspire greatness. It breeds decay. Part 15. To lead is not to please, it is to preserve. Leadership is not a popularity contest. It is not about applause, not about approval, not about being the one they like, but being the one they obey. True leadership is about preservation, keeping the structure intact, protecting the loyal, enforcing the rules, and making sure the system doesn't fall apart, even if it means being misunderstood. People often think leaders should be kind, gentle, inclusive, but the more you try to please everyone, the less you lead. The one who tries to avoid disappointment ends up avoiding decision. The one who tries to be loved by all ends up ruled by the expectations of others. And in time, they become what the system fears most, a leader who bends. To lead is not to comfort, it is to correct. You hold the line, not because it feels good, but because if you don't, no one will. You say no when others want yes. You act when others hesitate. And you protect not what is popular, but what is necessary, because the loyal depend on you. The structure depends on you. And leadership, at its core, is a burden, not a performance. So let the crowd misunderstand you. Let them call you harsh, cold, detached. Because when the moment of collapse comes, and it always does, it won't be the pleasers who hold the foundation. It will be the ones who preserved it. Part 16. Stop being kind to everyone. Be respected instead. You were not born to be agreeable. You were not made to please everyone, to smile on command, to soften every edge of your soul for the comfort of those who would never do the same for you. You were born to hold ground, to protect what matters, to speak with weight, and to be remembered not for your kindness, but for your clarity. Kindness has its place, but respect, Respect is eternal. Those who are kind to everyone become useful to no one. Their love is taken for granted. Their time is consumed. And when they finally break, they are called cruel by the very people who never deserved their warmth to begin with. But those who are selective, who hold back, who demand standards before offering grace, they are not always loved, but they are respected. In the end, power does not come from being liked. It comes from being understood. Understood as a force that cannot be played with, as a presence that sharpens others, as someone whose kindness is earned, not expected, and whose silence is a final warning. You don't need to be feared by all, just enough that no one mistakes your softness for surrender. So stop being kind to everyone. Be strategic, be measured, and most of all, be respected. Because those who are respected are rarely forgotten, and those who are feared when necessary are never betrayed.